Hi everybody, I'm Mia.
I'm Natalie.
This is Two Shards. What are we talking about today?
Mistborn. The final empire, to be specific.
Okay, so before we get into Kelsier, because trust me, we are getting into Kelsier, can we just spend like 2 minutes on the world? Because I have feelings about the world and I feel like it's setting up everything else.
Go.
The ash. The ash gets me every time. I don't understand why the ash gets me because it's just a detail, it's world flavor, but everything about Luthadel feels so heavy. Like the weight is physical. The skaa are miserable, the streets are gray, the plants are brown and dull. And ash is just falling, constantly, all the time. Falling like it's normal. And I think what Sanderson is doing there is brilliant because he's making the oppression visible. You can actually see it. It's on everything. The despair has a texture.
The mists, too.
The mists! God, the mists. Every night the world disappears into fog and everyone goes inside. And even the noblemen who go out at night are a little scared. It's such a specific image of what this society is. The daylight world belongs to the skaa, the night world belongs to someone else. And you feel it before anyone explains it to you.
And then, Kelsier runs through the mists like he owns them. That's his introduction. That's the first image we get of him. He doesn't hide from the night. He doesn't go inside. He is the only person in this entire world who is completely at home in the part of it that everyone else is terrified of. And before he says a single word, before you know anything about him,
you want to be him. Yeah. That's such good writing. That's almost unfair how good that is.
It's craft. Really deliberate craft. And I want to get back to how deliberate it is, because there's something about how Sanderson introduces him that I don't think gets talked about enough. But I want to build to it properly.
You're not going to tell me now.
I'm not going to tell you now.
Teasing me. We're going to come back to it. Okay, so I want to actually read you the pitch I wrote in my notes for this episode because I couldn't stop thinking about this and I had to write it down somewhere.
You wrote a pitch?
I wrote something down. Yes, I do that sometimes. Okay. Kelsier is the most beloved character introduction Sanderson has ever written. He's charming, funny, inspiring, and he might also be a fanatic, a manipulator, and something genuinely dangerous. And the terrifying part is that's not a flaw in the writing. That's the point.
Yeah, that's it.
That's the episode.
That's the episode. There's a reading of this book. I've seen it from a few different people online, not mainstream, but not fringe either, where Kelsier is essentially the villain. Not the Lord Ruler, not the Steel Ministry. Kelsier. And I don't think that's right. But I think it's asking a real question and it deserves a real answer.
Okay, here's where I land before we dig in. I think he's a hero. Absolutely the hero of this book. But I also think Sanderson is showing us very specifically what it costs to be that kind of hero. What it does to you. What it requires you to believe about the world and about yourself. And that's uncomfortable in a way that feels intentional, not accidental.
The Survivor. That's his name. His title, his legend, the Survivor. And I think that word is doing more work than it looks like.
Because he's not just someone who survived. He's someone who took being a survivor and made it into an identity. A movement. A religion, kind of.
A religion, yes. And that's not metaphorical. By the end of the book, okay, we're going full spoilers very fast. We can't help it with this one. If you haven't read The Final Empire, please go do that first. We'll be here. By the end, Kelsier is essentially building the framework for his own martyrdom. And it's not accidental. He knows what he's doing. He plans for it.
He plans for it.
He plans to die in a way that makes him useful to the revolution afterward. That is a very specific kind of person. And I think the book wants you to find that both inspiring and horrifying in the same breath.
It finds me horrifying and inspiring simultaneously, every time. It's like he is the most compelling argument for his own cause and the scariest proof that the cause is real. And I don't know how to hold both of those things, except I apparently just do, because the book makes me.
Okay, but here's what I actually want to dig into, because This is the thing that has been rolling around in my head since my last reread. How does the text get you to love him before it asks you to interrogate him? That's a deliberate choice. Sanderson does not lead with the uncomfortable questions. He waits. He makes sure you're completely on board. And then he starts tipping things over.
The structural order matters.
The structural order is everything. And I think that's the most interesting thing about the Final Empire as a reading experience. Because the answer to, what do you think about Kelsier, changes entirely depending on when you're asked. Chapter 7 versus Chapter 25 versus after you've finished Secret History.
Someone on Reddit put it really well. I saw this maybe a month ago. They said Kelsier is the first character Sanderson wrote who is genuinely more interesting on the reread than the first read. First read, he's your hero. Second read, he's your warning sign.
That's exactly right. And that's rare. Most Sanderson characters are better first read. You're discovering them. But Kelsier is better when you already know. Because you can see the machinery. You can see how the trick works and it still works on you. That's actually more impressive.
Okay, but before we go full analytical about him, can I just, for 1 second, talk about the fact that this man pulls a coin out of thin air, launches himself through a window, lands like it's nothing, and goes, "Hi, I'm Kelsier, the most dangerous man in the Empire. Want to join a heist?" And he is just objectively, undeniably, embarrassingly cool.
He's very cool.
He is so cool.
He's extremely cool. That's the entire point. The cool is the argument.
Wait, say that again.
The cool is the argument. Kelsier doesn't win people over with logic. He wins them over with style, with presence, with the confidence of someone who has already decided that he's going to win, and all that remains is convincing everyone else. And that is a form of charisma that is genuinely dangerous, not because it's false, but because it's true. He really is that capable, which is what makes him scary.
Because if he were a fraud, it would be easy to dismiss him.
But he's not a fraud. He actually can do everything he says he can do. And that's the most terrifying version of that character type. You can't call him out. You can't point to the gap between the performance and the reality. The performance is the reality. That's the whole thing.
Okay, we need to go deeper. Because I have so many feelings about this and we've barely even gotten to Vin.
We haven't gotten to Vin at all.
We haven't gotten to Allomancy. We haven't gotten to the crew. We haven't even talked about what the Lord Ruler actually is, which is its own thing.
That is its own thing.
I need more time. Can we have more time?
We have however long it takes.
Good, because I have a lot to say about this book.
Okay, let's actually do this properly. I want to go from the world outward, because I think the world is what earns everything the book asks of you emotionally.
Go.
The Final Empire. 1,000-year empire. The Lord Ruler has been on the throne for 1,000 years. And the thing that strikes me every time I think about that is what 1,000 years does to culture. The skaa don't remember freedom. There's no generational memory of anything different. The oppression isn't just structural, it's cosmological. The ash, the mists, the brown plants, the grey streets. This world has been aesthetically optimised for despair. The skaa have accepted it as natural order because what else would you do? You've never seen anything else.
And that's why Kelsier's pitch is so radical. He's not just saying, let's fight the government. He's saying, everything you've been told is permanent, isn't. The Lord Ruler can die. The mists don't have to be terrifying. He's pitching a complete rewrite of what they believe about reality. That's enormous. That's not a political speech, that's an ontological one.
And for that pitch to land, you need someone with absolute conviction. You can't pitch cosmic change with, well, maybe, let's see. You need someone who says it like it's already done, who doesn't flinch. Kelsier is that person. Completely and without hesitation, which is useful. And structurally, exactly the kind of person who becomes a problem once the thing he's convinced everyone of is done.
Okay, the heist. Can we talk about the heist structure? Because my sister called it very heisty, and she's right, but I think it's doing more than a heist does.
What makes a heist a heist? You've got the crew, the target, the plan, the complication that wrecks the plan, and then the improvised solution that turns out to be better. The final empire hits every single one of those. Kelsier's crew, the Lord Ruler's treasury, the Atium Gambit, the plan collapsing because of the army that was never supposed to exist. And then Kelsier dying instead of fighting, which is not the improvised solution you were expecting.
It's not the improvised solution at all. Because the convention of the heist genre is that the clever man gets out. And Brandon just doesn't do that. He keeps the heist frame but refuses the heist ending.
He uses the genre expectations as a trap. You've been trained by every heist story you've ever consumed to believe that the clever man escapes the impossible situation. And then he doesn't. The point is that he doesn't. Because some problems aren't solved by cleverness. They're solved by sacrifice. And Kelsier knew that from the beginning.
He knew from the beginning.
There's a version of this. I've seen it discussed in a few places, and I believe it was touched on in a signing somewhere, so correct me if I'm off, where Kelsier's plan always included the possibility that he would have to die for it to work. He built an exit into his own death.
He built a martyrdom plan. He sat down and thought, if I die in the right way at the right moment, that's worth more than me surviving. And then he executed it. That's a very specific kind of person.
Which brings us to the crew. And the crew matters here. Ham, Breeze, Clubs, Dockson, Spook, these are not just genre archetypes. Sanderson does something specific with them. They're all cynics. Every single one. They don't believe in Kelsier's idealism. They believe in the plan, they believe in the money, they believe in survival. And they follow him anyway.
Because he's convincing enough that even cynics follow him. Yeah.
And that's the thing about charisma as a force. The cynics don't have to believe in his dream. They just have to believe in him. And he's real enough, reliable enough that it works. Which is a very specific and alarming demonstration of what that kind of person can do.
Okay, Breeze. Can we talk about Breeze specifically? Because Breeze is genuinely one of the funniest characters in the book, and also he is canonically a Soother who is using his abilities on the crew constantly, and they just kind of accept that. Which on the surface is played as a character joke. But also, that is a guy who manipulates people's emotions for a living? And he's on your side? And you're relying on him?
Right. And the book asks you to find Breeze charming. Which you do. But Breeze is the literal answer to the question of what it looks like when someone uses emotional manipulation to move people in the direction they want. He just does it with Allomancy, so it's visible. What Kelsier does with presence and charisma is the same thing, just harder to name.
Oh, hold on. Say that again.
Breeze uses Allomancy to make you feel what he wants you to feel. Kelsier does the same thing without Allomancy. The mechanism is different. The function is identical.
Okay, that is going to live in my brain for a very long time. I'd never put those two together, and now I can't unput them. Okay, Allomancy. We have to talk about Allomancy.
The magic system.
Which, I'll say up front, I'm not normally the one who cares about magic systems. You know that. I'm a character first reader, and magic is basically furniture to me. But Allomancy is different. Allomancy I actually care about.
Because it's elegant.
Because it makes sense. Every other magic system I've read, no shade, truly, feels like the author invented powers and then stapled rules to them after. Allomancy feels derived. Like there's an underlying logic and the powers are the outputs of that logic. Metals as fuel, burning the metal gets you the ability, 8 basic metals, 4 pushing, 4 pulling. And then there are 2 whole other magic systems, ferrochemy and hemalurgy, but we are not opening those today.
We'd be here until next week.
We'd be here until next week. But the reason Allomancy matters for this conversation is what it means that Kelsier is a Mistborn. Because Mistborn, full Allomancers who can burn all the metals, are almost exclusively noblemen. They're the enforcers. They're the power structure. And Kelsier is half-blood skaa with noble heritage, and the Empire's response to that is to throw him into the pits of Hathsin and kill his wife.
Because a skaa Mistborn is the thing the entire system was designed to prevent. The Lord Ruler understood that Allomancy in skaa hands is the only threat to everything he built. So he made it culturally, legally, structurally impossible. And then Kelsier happened anyway.
And the system failed. And he survived. And that's why his whole thing is personal before it's political. He doesn't hate the Lord Ruler because of ideology first. He hates him because of what happened to Mare. This is grief that got repackaged as revolution.
I think that's part of it. But Sanderson is careful not to let that be the whole thing. If it were just personal, the revolution would end when the Lord Ruler died. But Kelsier builds something that will outlast him. The crew, the army, the legend. He specifically creates structures designed to survive his death. That's not grief. That's planning.
So it starts as grief and becomes something bigger.
It starts as grief and becomes a worldview. And worldviews are more dangerous than grief. Grief has edges. Worldviews don't.
Worldviews don't. Okay. Yeah.
And that brings us to Vin. Because I actually want to talk about Vin's scenes in the noble houses before we get to her arc with Kelsier. Because those scenes are a huge part of what makes this book work, and they're weirdly underrated.
Yes. Thank you. The ball scenes! Vin at the noble balls!
The infiltration arc, the dresses, the dances, learning to move through a world that is built to exclude her. There's something almost funny about it on the surface. Vin, the street thief in a ball gown, learning to curtsy.
It is funny! It is played as funny sometimes. And also it's doing something real. Because Vin being in those spaces is terrifying. She is a skaa pretending to be nobility in a world where discovery means death. Every chapter in those settings has this low-grade dread running underneath the dancing and the politics. And she's good at it. She's genuinely good at it immediately. Which says something about her.
It says she's been reading people her whole life. Because survival on the streets of Lutherdale as a skaa girl required her to understand everyone in a room the moment she walked in. The ball scene just put that skill in a different costume.
And there's the Elend element, obviously, which we're going to come back to in the Well of Ascension episode. But even just their early scenes where she's spying and he's reading a book in the corner at a party because he'd rather be literally anywhere else. I love them so much. They're both pretending to be something they're not, and somehow that's how they connect.
Two people who don't fit the world they've been assigned to, finding each other at a party neither of them wants to be at. Yeah. Very good. But, okay, the Steel Inquisitors. Because we can't talk about this book without at least mentioning the Steel Inquisitors.
Oh god, the Inquisitors.
Spikes through their eyes. Not through. The spike goes in one side and out the other. That's how they see. That's how their Allomancy works. They are hemalurgically constructed, which is a nightmare sentence that I'm not going to fully unpack right now. But the point is, they are the single most viscerally terrifying image in the entire book. And they are the Lord Ruler's personal enforcement arm. And when Kelsier fights one...
That scene had me putting the book down in a different way than the Lord Ruler reveal did. Because Kelsier walks into that fight and I genuinely did not know if he was going to walk out. And that's rare. He's so competent the whole book that I'd stopped worrying about him. And then there's a Steel Inquisitor, and suddenly I'm worried again.
Which is structurally perfect, because it's the first time in the book that the cool is the argument fails as a survival strategy. He runs. He has to run. And that tells you something about the scale of what they're up against.
And then he goes right back into the mission. Barely stops.
Right. Barely stops. That's the thing. Okay, the crew planning sessions, quickly, because I love those and they don't get enough credit. The scene where they're all sitting around at the table and Kelsier is explaining the plan and everyone is finding a different reason to tell him it's impossible.
Ham has the philosophical objections, Breeze has the practical ones, Clubs just says it won't work, and Kelsier has this energy, like he's delighted by their skepticism. Like he's been waiting for exactly these objections so he can knock them down one by one?
And the thing that makes those scenes work is that the skeptics are right. The plan is insane. Every objection they raise is valid. And Kelsier just absorbs the objections and keeps going. Because what they're responding to is not the logic of the plan. It's him.
It's always him.
And that brings us to Vin's arc, which is where I want to land before we move to the tangent. Because Vin is the reader's surrogate. Sanderson is very deliberate about that. And she starts this book completely incapable of trust. Her whole first act arc is learning that the crew might actually be reliable. And who teaches her that?
Kelsier.
Kelsier teaches her to trust. Which, in practice, means trusting him. And that's beautiful. He loves her, protects her, is honest with her in ways he isn't with the crew. But the skill he's teaching her is also the skill that makes her useful to his plan.
He teaches her to trust him specifically.
He teaches her to trust, which in practice means trusting him. And she's right in this book. He is worthy of it. But the skill he's building in her is also the thing that makes her function the way his plan needs her to function.
Okay, that's uncomfortable.
It's uncomfortable because it's not cynical. He's not manipulating her for bad reasons. He does it because he believes what he believes. That's the most uncomfortable version of this.
Because if he were using her, it would be easy. You could call him a villain. But he genuinely cares about her and is shaping her toward where his plan needs her to go. And those can both be true. They are both true.
Vin's arc across the full trilogy, we're not going there today, but just noting, is about figuring out who she is when she's not who Kelsier shaped her to be. That's the entire next 2 books.
Oh, that's her arc. I didn't think about it that way. Separating her identity from the person who made her. Okay, if you have not read this book and you're somehow still listening, you should go read it and then come back. But also, if you're the kind of person who just watched us spiral through 1,000-year empire's worth of analysis and thought, yes, more of this every week. We do, in fact, do this every week. Read. Subscribe so you don't miss us.
We're not going anywhere.
Okay. I want to ask people something because I feel like we need outside input on this. Where does everyone land on Vin and Elend? Because we're going to come back to this in the Well of Ascension episode, which, yes, is happening. We're going book by book. But my read of them in Final Empire is that they're sweet, and also that neither of them has any idea what they're doing.
They're both learning to be people while falling for each other, which is its own specific and very good thing.
It is. But tell us yours. Drop it in the comments. I want to know if everyone thinks this goes the way they think it goes.
And if you think Elend is too much of a dork, that is also valid, and we want to hear it.
Natalie.
I'm just saying, we want all the opinions.
Actually, can I go sideways for a second? Because there's something we haven't mentioned that I think is the actual hinge of this entire book. The hinge.
The Lord Ruler.
The Lord Ruler. We've been talking about Kelsier this whole time, and the man who has been running 1,000-year empire is just sitting in his palace being inscrutable.
The Lord Ruler is one of the most structurally interesting choices in the whole book. He's almost entirely absent. For most of Final Empire, he's a mythological presence. You see his steel ministry, you see the obligators everywhere, these bureaucratic enforcers in their tattoos, doing the administrative work of oppression. You see the Inquisitors as his enforcement arm, you see the effect of his power everywhere. But the man himself is basically off-screen. And then you meet him.
And he's... Okay, wait, I want to make sure I'm remembering this right. He looks powerful, right? Not old, not frail.
That's actually the thing people sometimes get wrong. He appears powerful, unnervingly so, almost ageless. Because of how he's using his abilities, combining feruchemy and allomancy in ways the book doesn't fully explain until much later. He's been storing and using attributes in ways that keep him appearing at peak capacity. He doesn't look like what you'd expect a 1,000-year-old man to look like. He looks like someone you should be afraid of.
Right. And then, at the end, When Kelsier destabilizes him and he starts losing access to those stored attributes, that's when you see what he actually is underneath. And it's devastating. Not sympathetic exactly, but devastating.
Because the thing that gets me every single time is that he's not wrong. That's the twist I don't think enough people sit with. When everything comes out at the end, what the Lord Ruler actually did, why he became what he became, he's not wrong. He has been carrying something for 1,000 years that nobody else knows about. He is the only thing standing between the world and something genuinely catastrophic. And he's been doing it alone, in the dark, while everyone hates him.
And Kelsier kills him.
And Kelsier kills him, yes. And in the immediate context of the book, that's the triumphant moment. The oppressor is dead, the system collapses, the revolution wins. And then the next chapter has Sazed finding the storage cavern and reading what's inside and realizing that, oh, actually, the world is ending now, so...
Oh god, this is the thing. This is where Sanderson does his Sanderlanche, right?
Exactly. But this one's different from the usual Sanderlanche because it's not just, here are more things happening. It's a complete recontextualization of the thing that just happened. The victory is immediately revealed to be potentially catastrophic.
And I remember, okay, I'm going to embarrass myself slightly. First time I read that section, I actually had to close the book for a minute. Because the thing I'd been so happy about, the thing I'd been cheering for, suddenly had this shadow. And it felt genuinely uncomfortable. Like, congratulations, you got what you wanted, now look at what it costs.
That's good writing?
That is very good writing. That's writing that changes the shape of the story in retrospect without changing a single word of what came before.
And the Lord Ruler gets not a redemption, but a clarification. You're not made to like him, but you understand that the picture you had was incomplete. He was the wrong answer to a real problem, and he was the wrong answer for a long time. 1,000 years of slavery, the pits of Hathsin. None of that gets washed away, but he is asking you to see a fuller picture. And that fuller picture makes Kelsier's revolution more complicated than it looked.
Because if Kelsier had known, or if anyone had known, would the calculus change?
That's the unanswerable question. And Sanderson doesn't answer it, which is correct. He just leaves it there. Here's what Kelsier didn't know. Here's what it cost. You decide what that means.
And the obligators, actually. Can we spend like 30 seconds on the obligators? Because they're such a smart detail. They're not soldiers. They're witnesses. The Lord Ruler constructed a society where you literally cannot do business, sign a contract, get married without an obligator present to validate it. He made himself structurally necessary to normal life.
The Steel Ministry's bureaucratic oppression is so much scarier than the Inquisitors to me. The Inquisitors are terrifying in a visceral way, but the obligators are the thing that makes the oppression self-maintaining. You can't have a revolution and a commerce system at the same time without them. It's genius, structurally, and it's evil, structurally, at the same time.
And Kelsier is trying to tear the whole thing down knowing that he's not naive about what it will break. He just believes that something better can be built on the wreckage, which, Well of Ascension is going to have thoughts about whether that belief was warranted.
Well, of Ascension has a lot of thoughts about that. But it sets up the whole next 2 books. The series isn't really about killing the Lord Ruler. That's the Act 1 ending. The series is about what you do with the world after. And the answer is, you spend 2 more books figuring out who the hero is supposed to be and what kind of world you're trying to build.
And Kelsier's not there for that part. He dies before the hard part starts.
He dies before the hard part starts. Yeah.
Which is grim, actually. The more I think about it, the grimmer it gets. He's the inspiration for the revolution, but he doesn't have to do the work of what revolution means afterward.
Vin and Elend do the work. Sazed does the actual cosmological heavy lifting. Kelsier is the spark. He was never going to be the solution. And I think he knew that.
I think he knew that too.
Which brings us back to the debate. Because there's a version of Kelsier who is exactly what he presents himself as. The hero of the revolution, the man who proved it could be done. And there's another version who is someone who designed his own martyrdom because he knew that's what the plan required. And those two things describe the same person doing the same actions, just from different angles.
And secret history
is where the other angle becomes a lot harder to dismiss. Yeah, we should talk about that.
We should probably warn people that we're about to go full secret history.
If you haven't read Mistborn Secret History, it's a novella. It's in Arcanum Unbounded. It runs parallel to the trilogy from Kelsier's POV in the cognitive realm. Go do that first. Or don't. I'm not your mum. But it changes things in ways that are hard to describe without spoiling.
It changes things. Okay. Full spoilers from here, everything on the table. We're going in.
Okay. I need to say something that I know is going to get us absolutely roasted in the comments. Kelsier is not a good person who does some bad things. Kelsier is a person with genuinely good values, who has arrived at a place where he cannot distinguish between his values and his will. And that is a very specific and dangerous configuration.
I actually disagree with the framing. Not the conclusion, the framing.
Okay.
Because cannot distinguish his values from his will sounds like a character flaw. And I don't think it's a flaw. I think it's the thing that makes him capable of doing what needs doing. You cannot free a 1,000-year slave empire with someone who is conflicted about it. You can't. The people who liberate enslaved populations, historically, this is a dark thing to say, but it's true, are often people with that exact configuration. People who have decided, who are not going to stop, who are not interested in the complicated middle ground. And that's horrifying in certain contexts and it's necessary in others.
I don't fully disagree with that, but I want to push on something. Because there's a version of your argument where the ends justify the means, and Sanderson is very careful not to let the book make that case cleanly. The skaa army that Kelsier builds, the one that helps win the revolution, those men and women die in massive numbers, in a battle that Kelsier knew they couldn't win conventionally. He sends them to die specifically because their deaths destabilize the Lord Ruler and give him the opening he needs. And he knows that when he does it.
He does. He knows.
And the book doesn't dwell on it. It doesn't hide it either. It's there if you're looking. But the framing is triumphant. You feel the triumph first. The cost is visible if you look for it. That is Sanderson making a deliberate choice about where to put the camera.
Okay, yes. And that's where I feel the discomfort most, actually. Not in the big philosophical stuff about revolution and charisma and what he represents in that specific thing. Those specific people who died because Kelsier needed them to die in order for the plan to work. And he knew. And he did it anyway.
But here's the thing, and this is where I want to push back on your reading. You're framing it as if the skaa dying in that battle was an acceptable cost Kelsier didn't feel deeply. I think that's wrong. I think he felt it. I think he carried all of it. The question is whether feeling it changed what he did. And it didn't.
Which is almost worse.
Which is almost worse. Because a monster who doesn't feel it is easy to categorize. Someone who feels it and does it anyway, you have to grapple with what that means about the thing he was trying to do.
Okay, so is the argument that he had no other option? Or that he convinced himself he had no other option? Because those are very different things, and I genuinely don't know which one the book is saying.
I think the book is saying both and leaving you to decide which is more true. And I think that ambiguity is intentional. Because if Sanderson came down firmly on one side, if he said definitively Kelsier was right or Kelsier was wrong, the book would be a lesser thing. The discomfort is the point.
Okay, that's fair. Let's talk about what he actually does to the crew. Because this is something I've been thinking about, and it's related to the breeze thing you said earlier. Kelsier assembles these people. He makes them believe. He makes them care. And then he dies. He builds relationships, and then he designs a plan that requires those relationships to survive his death. Is that using them?
I mean, yes, but not exclusively. He's also genuinely fond of them. Ham is his friend. He likes Spook's weird inability to speak normal words. He and Dockson go back years. Those feelings are real. And they're also strategic. And you can't separate them out because I don't think he could.
He can't separate them. And nobody can tell from the outside whether the care is real or whether the care is also the tool. Possibly because it's both.
Possibly because it's both. Right. Can we talk about his relationship with Vin, specifically in this context? Because I think Vin is where this gets most interesting.
Please.
Vin at Kredik Shaw. When she goes in alone to try to assassinate the Lord Ruler herself, which is absolutely insane, by the way, she nearly dies. And what that moment reveals about how far she's come from the terrified street kid in the first chapter. She goes in alone because she believes the plan needs her to. Because Kelsier taught her that sacrifice for the cause is what the cause requires. He taught her his own values so thoroughly that she enacts them without him asking.
She internalized him.
She internalized him, and she does it in a situation where he didn't send her. She goes herself. His lessons are running in her head without him being present. That is the most effective form of influence. You're not there, and you still made the decision.
That is... Okay, I find that genuinely creepy and also genuinely moving. Simultaneously. Which is the Kelsier experience, I guess.
It is the Kelsier experience. Okay, secret history. Let's do it. Because this is where I think the book's real question gets answered. And the answer is uncomfortable.
Go!
Kelsier in the cognitive realm, after he's dead, is not particularly troubled by what he did. He's troubled by not being alive to see the aftermath. He's not at peace exactly, but he's settled. He made the choices he made. He believes in them. And I think that's Sanderson being really honest about what that character is. Because the comfortable move, the easy redemption arc move, would be to give him a crisis of conscience. A moment where he wonders if he was wrong. And he doesn't get one.
He doesn't have regrets.
His deepest regret is Mare. That's the one that stays with him. Everything else, the plan, the deaths, the martyrdom, the skaa army he sent into a fight he knew they'd lose. He grapples with some of it, but he doesn't conclude he was wrong. He concludes the cost was worth it. And I find that both admirable and deeply unsettling in equal measure.
Because you want him to have a crisis. You want him to look back and feel the weight of it. And he does feel it. He felt it in the moment, but he doesn't conclude from it that he was wrong. He concludes from it that the cost was worth it.
And here's the part that I think is the most important thing in this entire conversation, and I'm going to try to say it clearly. In Secret History, Kelsier is in the cognitive realm and he's given the opportunity to move on, to go somewhere beyond. And he refuses. He decides to stay, to work on something.
Oh no.
And if you've read far enough into the Cosmere, specifically Era 2 Mistborn, specifically what's happening with the Ghostbloods, Kelsier post-death has been in the cognitive realm for essentially the entire length of the trilogy and beyond. Gathering investiture, building something, with an agenda that is not fully disclosed and is not clearly benign.
It is not clearly benign.
The man we loved in Final Empire, the man who gave everything for the revolution, in the Cosmere's larger picture, he is operating at a scope that makes his Final Empire actions look small. And we don't know what he wants. We don't know whose side he's on. We just know he's very committed to whatever it is.
And here's the thing, I trust him. I still trust him. Even knowing all of this, even saying it out loud, his agenda is unclear and possibly not good. I still have this residual warmth about Kelsier that makes me want to give him the benefit of the doubt.
And why is that?
Because I loved him in the Final Empire.
Because you loved him in the Final Empire. That's it. That's the whole thing. The character who most effectively teaches the Cosmere reader to trust him, and then operates at a scale and secrecy where that trust may not be warranted, is Kelsier. His introduction is designed to make you trust him. His self-sacrifice is designed to make you love him. And his post-death activities are designed to what exactly? We don't know. But we keep trusting him because we loved him first. And Sanderson set that up in Chapter 1.
That's terrifying.
The Final Empire always was.
Okay, wait. I want to push back on one thing before we land because I feel like you're making this sound more sinister than I think it is. Because here's the other read. Kelsier spent his final Empire arc proving that he would sacrifice himself for the people he cared about. He died for the plan. And post-death, whatever he's doing, it might be the same thing at a bigger scale. He might be protecting things. He might be the weird, terrifying guardian that the Cosmere needs and nobody else could do.
He might be. And I genuinely don't know. That's my point. We don't know. And the fact that we're more inclined to give him the benefit of the doubt than we are to give it to, say, an unmade, that's because of Final Empire. He earned that trust in one book, and he's spending it across the entire Cosmere. And that might be exactly what he intended.
Or he might just be Kelsier. Doing what Kelsier does. Believing in the cause absolutely. Refusing to stop. Even when the cause is whatever he's building out there.
Even when the cause is whatever he's building out there. Yeah. The comment section is going to have thoughts about this. I know it. So drop them down there. Because I genuinely think this is one of the great, unresolved debates in the fandom. Team Kelsier is the hero, full stop. Team Kelsier is a warning we keep ignoring. And the third option.
Team both, and the fact that it's both is the point.
Which is my team.
Which is my team too. I just wanted to make sure we defended him a little before we got there.
Noted. You were very gallant.
Thank you. I thought so. Okay. We have to land somewhere. I want to actually say where I end up.
Same.
The Final Empire is... Okay, I think it's the best entry point into the Cosmere that exists. I've said that before, and I still believe it. It's complete. Beginning, middle, and an ending that is satisfying on its own, even if you never read another Sanderson word. The magic system is elegant. The world is vivid. The heist is genuinely fun. And underneath all of that, it is asking real questions about what revolution costs and who gets to be the hero. And it trusts you to hold all of that at the same time.
I agree with the entry point call, and you know how long it took me to get here. I pushed back on it in episode 2. I still think Way of Kings is the honest answer if someone wants the full Cosmere experience from the jump. But if someone says, I don't know where to start and I don't want to be overwhelmed, it's Mistborn, the Final Empire. It earns that.
We finally agree on something.
We agree on a lot of things. We just argue better when we don't.
True. Where does it sit for you? In the Cosmere. Rank it right now.
Genuinely top 3. Which is uncomfortable to say because it means I'm ranking it above some Stormlight books, and that sits weirdly. But the craft, the tightness of it, the fact that everything means something, that Sanderson is operating at maximum precision the whole time, it earns the spot.
For me, it's my second favorite Cosmere book. Right now. Behind Words of Radiance, which is probably always going to be my answer for reasons that involve Kaladin and that bridge. And I'll take the emotionally unhinged label. It's mine. I'm keeping it. But the Final Empire is right there. Because every time I read it, I find something. There's a line near the end where Vin is walking through Luthadel after everything has happened and the ash is still falling. And she looks up. And the ash is still falling. And I think what Sanderson is doing there is, you can destroy the wrong answer. And the ash is still falling. You won. And the ash is still falling. And that's what the next 2 books are about. Figuring out what you do with the ash.
Yeah.
You can't clean it up in one day.
Book 2 is a very different book from this one. People who love Final Empire as a heist story sometimes find it difficult because it's much more political, much more internal. It's the book where Sanderson asks what happens when the revolution is over and you have to actually run something, which is, historically, where everything tends to go wrong.
Book 2 is where this gets more complicated, in the best way.
Can I say one more thing about Kelsier?
Always.
There's a moment early in the book, within the first few chapters, when Kelsier is watching Vin use Allomancy for the first time. She's raw, barely controlled, a little dangerous to herself, and Sanderson describes the way he looks at her. And I'm going from memory here, so someone correct me if I'm slightly off, as something like satisfaction, mixed with something else. And I read that on reread and thought, he's not just happy she can do this. He's happy she can be useful. And he loves her. Both of those things are happening at the same time, in the same look. And that's the whole book in one moment. He genuinely loves the people he's working with. He's also looking at them and calculating what they can do. And those are not two separate things for him. They are one thing.
One thing.
Not a villain. Just someone to be careful around.
The mists are still out there.
Yeah,
That's terrifying.
the final empire always was.